How is that? Do we have sound now? I'm gonna have to start from the very top again because it looks like
good thing we got all of our great banter out of
right?
the way.
Like
so
all
that
the
no
really
one
good
could hear
banter.
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
And now we're just painting silently.
Like real artists.
Right, exactly. So
Now
if I have to, I might have to reintroduce everybody, and everyone's going to have to say all the fun things again.
Erica,
they
you
said
promised earlier that you could do this.
Exactly.
No, ma'am. Out of the way.
She runs off camera.
Going that way. So you don't...
Exactly.
Like I learned.
So everyone, welcome yet again to Painting from Life, session 44. And I'm going to go just through the same spiel that I went earlier because I was noticing that we were on mute this whole time. So today has been a bit of a fiasco in production, but I think I've worked all the kinks out by now. So we'll see if that is the case. But like I was saying before, this is Tina Figarelli's last time doing Painting from Life with us as an artist here in resident. She's about to move back to Chicago, and we are so excited for her to spread her wings and do have the next adventure. We are very sad about her leaving here in our community. So it's a bittersweet situation, but everyone, you'll have to give her all of her love and good vibes today. So, and then we have Chelsea in the middle. Chelsea Lang, who's also part of the East Oak Studio family, a local artist here in town. And then Erica Arcute here from the far corner, who's an artist in resident here at East Oaks. And y'all need to, if anyone is in New York, you need to check out her flowers at the 5 and Under show. Are they done?
That ended.
Oh, it's done. It's done. It's okay. It'll be up again. Never mind. So calling for us this evening. So, and then it is yours truly, Lewis Carr, in the background, along with Megan is also joining me back here. So helping learn the ropes on the backside of things. So, but keep telling us where you're from. We have people from all over. We have some people from Saudi Arabia, Vermont. We were just saying Lake Geneva, which is where Tina is familiar with, has actually been there. So Amelia says she just bought the course, Brock Larson course, our course, and she's going through Brock Larson's stuff. And tell us how you like it. So yeah, that catches us up. And we do have Chera saying all the best to Tina.
Oh.
Bundle up.
Thank you.
Yeah, are you prepared?
Yeah, I'm going back to my roots. So it's like I've been spoiled here, and honestly, I can't take the southern heat in the summer. So I think that I've learned that about myself since moving here. So I'll take the snow if it means I don't have to suffer 90% humidity every day from June to August. So I'll send you guys pictures of the snow.
We have Eric Now Sucks from saying hi from Ohio. He actually said he from Ohio and then corrected and said hi from Ohio, which is a very common thing for me to do as well. I'm so excited that the iPhone now has the edit your text text message feature, because I edit them probably every time I send out a text. It's almost better if I just voice dictate them, because it'll end up being more accurate than my thumbs are.
I hate when it autocorrects like a word that's not wrong. Like it keeps
after you write and it goes back and changes it. What is that?
You tell them. You tell me, Erica.
I'm talking to you, Apple. So guys, Tim Cook, fix that.
Come on, Tim.
You heard it here.
Get with the program.
I feel like you're doing like Seinfeld.
What's up with that?
And don't, your eyes are not playing tricks on you. I am moving a few things around on the screen to make it.
Thought you were critiquing my
work.
painting for
No.
a second. As I realized that I had a drawing error with the eye placements.
No, I'm sure that people are like, is the screen moving or is it me? Is there something actually more in my coffee than I expected to be there?
Did anyone watch the VMAs last night?
Oh, that was last night. wasn't it?
I watched it on TikTok for free. I don't have cable. It's pretty good.
Isn't the Emmys coming up?
Well, they did like the first part of the Emmys. I saw that The Bear won like a ton of Emmys already, but it's before the primetime Emmys. So it's a lot of like casting and stuff.
It's incredible.
The Bear, yeah.
It's a really good show.
It was really good.
And I was forewarned when I told people I was first starting to watch the show, and they said, watch out for the Christmas episode.
Oh
yeah.
It's pretty stressful. Make sure you're like in a stable state to watch that episode. And wow, it is intense. It was a very intense episode.
It felt like it was a really long episode.
It's amazing how, I think it objectively was long,
like an hour
but
that
episode feels like it's like 4 hours long.
Yeah.
It feels like being trapped in a terrible family get together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad all of you are here for our commentary and, professional art criticism, film criticism of The Bear.
While we talk
because
about
that's
The
what we're
Bear.
going to be talking about for the next 3 hours.
I will say I don't know why it was nominated as a comedy. I feel like a lot of
because
people.
of the half-hour format.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
It's like an antiquated.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay, because people were like, it's kind of not fair that that's in the comedy section because it's kind of winning everything else that because Only Murders in the Building is another one that got nominated for comedy.
Yeah.
And they're like not able to win because The Bear is winning everything.
Yeah, I think it's just like the categories have to be redone considering how much like the golden age of television and prestige, TV shows are kind of breaking the mold formula-wise.
Well, if you think about it, it actually is probably going much closer to the original comedy meaning, sort of the tragedy side of things. So where it's really not quite that funny.
Yeah.
But Only Murders in the Building, however, is a very funny show and love that show. It's one of the few celebrities I got to meet when I was in New York was Steve Martin.
Steve Martin. That's because there's Steve Martin and then there's Martin Short, who's also in there.
Steve Martin's the white-haired.
Okay, the taller one.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe you're having to ask who
That's
Steve
really
Martin
funny.
is.
I get them confused because they have the same name but in different orders.
I want to make it clear it's more of me making like a generational commentary versus like a personal like Tina, come on.
Yeah.
Have you not done your homework?
You're right. You're right. I know him from Pink Panther
Oh,
and
interesting.
Cheaper by the Dozen. I love that movie.
That definitely shows the generational gap because
Yes.
the reason I love him is because of Father of the Bride.
Mm.
That was like one of my favorite childhood movies.
My
growing
mom's
up.
favorite is LA Story.
Really
Mm-hmm.
nice. And I don't know if y'all know this, but that was a remake off of Spencer Tracy. Father of the Bride was.
Oh.
So Spencer Tracy originally did it. So it's kind of like the same way with like Ocean's 11 was not originally George Clooney, but it was Frank Sinatra. So all right, we have a few questions coming in. So we have Eric says, I have a technical question. Since skin is orange, it can be desaturated with blue, in parentheses, cobalt, green, in parentheses, viridian, or purple, manganese. How do you determine which to use?
I conceptualize skin as not orange, or like a not just orange itself. I break it up into a combination of a lot of colors. And so that combination of things ends up creating that neutral. So when you have warms and cools combined, then you get like a flesh tone. So I don't, but because I conceptualize a little bit differently, then my color choices, I'm not worried about choosing one or the other. I'm more concerned about value and temperature relationships. And so then you can use a lot of different colors, depending on what you want to do. So
Cool.
that's
Good answer.
my point of view on that.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll use all of them, just in different areas of the face. Like if I'm
Exactly.
going to make the temple maybe more purple, and then I'll make like the jawline more green. And it also kind of depends on the environment that the subject is in, because if I'm having like a neutral background that I'm noticing some purples in, then I'll lean a little bit more towards my purple and my cool mixtures to have a really pretty harmony with the background. But there are no rules when it comes to painting. It's a good thing. You can kind of bend them and work as you go.
Yeah, I find the more that a painter is able to kind of break away from a formula-based approach to color theory and kind of moving away from recipes, typically the more successful their paintings become. So that's not to say, like, for instance, the very first mixture that I will make is usually some combination when I'm painting someone with white skin of Terra Rosa and titanium white. And then I will typically just look at, reducing the saturation either with something more intense like viridian or something that is already in the middle, like transparent oxide brown. But I kind of am looking for like an overall base tone, and I'm doing a lot of active checking of that color. If you all had been in here before we went live, you would have seen all three of us doing a lot of like mixing with the palette knife, not while the model was in pose, but just while she was up on the model stand. Just to really like give ourselves a head start for when the model timer actually started. But we might start with like an initial assumption, but we quickly will like divorce ourselves from that assumption when we realize that the typical formula doesn't hold up. And so today, for instance, we don't have super bright on her skin, are still like very dulled down and desaturated compared to other lighting scenarios that we could put this model in exactly. But starting off with like a mixture that we've actually checked by holding the knife up to our model to check, very quickly you will learn to let go of the recipe that you think you need for the color, and you'll just start reaching for intuitively what you need.
I like to think of these things like recipes or different approaches as just a way to start and a way to help simplify the infinity that you see in front of you and the chaos that you see in front of you of like, how am I going to simplify like all of this information into something to get started? So I think it's a great way to begin, even just, for example, by simplifying the skin tone into something generic. And maybe, for example, it's like, oh, the skin tone looks like a peachy light. That might be a great place to kind of think generically of like how I can unify the whole thing. And then that way, when you start breaking it down into more complicated variety, it'll still have the unity that makes it, one singular person under one light source, et cetera, that we have set up here.
Yeah, it's a great descriptor.
Very well said, everyone. It was nice. We
How
have
are we on time, by the
Alyssa.
way?
Oh, yes. Let's see what time we are. You're 50 seconds left.
My
Pretty spot
clock
on.
is just.
Well, I'm telling
so
you,
good.
Erica's internal clock. I should just let you just be like, you just tell us intuitively, Erica, when it's time to
When you
stop.
feel it's been 20 minutes.
So, everyone, in about 30 seconds or so, we will be taking a bit of a break. But Alyssa says, hello from Australia, and says, is the fabulous East October happening next month? Alyssa, we are working on possibly doing it. It's going to be much smaller this year because I have a large order set to get through on painting. But we are going to try to do something for everyone. It's going to East October, hopefully, will look a little bit different every year on how we do it, but we want to make sure that we stay true to doing it in some way, shape, or form. So some years it'll be bigger and some years it'll be smaller, but we can also always reincorporate the challenge that we had before. So anyway, everyone, that is going to be the model break. We're going to take a quick breather for the model, and we will be back shortly.
How are you doing?
Okay, everybody, we are back. And that's when the chatter all stops.
Silence.
And it was like everyone's having a good time, and then all of a sudden, I
Dead-
turn the
dead
thing on, it's just like,
silence.
shoom. And like a conversation killer. Turn on the camera, turn on the mics.
Mhm. Okay. All right. I'll try and make up for this. I apologize because I forget the person's name who asked about East October, but
It was
would love
Alyssa.
Alyssa.
Yeah. Mhm.
I would love to hear, Alyssa, if you had a favorite day or something from East October that you're like really that you would like love to see in an upcoming East October.
That's a great question.
Yes, that's a
Hmm.
fantastic question. I love that.
Just making up for all the chaos that that I wrought.
No.
We have someone, DE Study, says hello from Cary, North Carolina.
Oh my God.
Actually, just right down the road.
Neighbors.
Love it. We have Jakai, I think is how you pronounce it, saying tuning in from Chicago.
Yeah.
So Tina's going to be heading up close to
What
you
I
soon.
like to hear. Everyone else sucks.
What are you like most looking forward to, not like weather wise, but maybe like art wise about being back in Chicago?
Ooh, well, I feel like when I was living in Chicago, because I grew up there, I didn't know like a lot of the people in like the representational art world that I do know now. So now it's kind of like I'm on the hunt for the people in
Yeah.
the city of Chicago who are doing what I do. And I'm trying to like, gather my intel. And it's really funny because there's some people that'll just like pop up and be like, oh, I'm from Chicago. And I'm like, okay, but like, I'm not really from Chicago. Like I'm from like the suburbs of Chicago. So like, are you from the suburbs of Chicago also? And most of the time they're like, yeah, I'm like 10 minutes away from where my parents live. I'm like, oh, cool. So you're like right there. So it's kind of just building like a different community that's going to be more local to where I am, and just see what new people I meet and new experiences I have with like figure groups and stuff like that. I think that'll be really fun. So
I want to say Suchi Bosley is up in Chicago. Is that right? Do you
Ooh.
know?
I'm not sure. I
can't
know
remember.
that Palette and Chisel is a huge atelier up there.
Mhm.
So they have like Mary Chin, I think is in Chicago.
Oh, that would be
Um,
cool.
Yeah. Romel Del Torre is
Mhm.
also there. Andrew Conklin. We've got quite a few people, but they're really like alla prima painters, which I am not.
Yeah. Do you
So-
want to trade and you can just stay here? And-
It's okay because now you'll like know a person that's going to be there, so you have a connection. So I'll like, yeah, don't worry. Be like, I know a girl. Yeah, this is my friend Chelsea.
I wish I got that high five on camera. Everybody heard just a big clap.
You're welcome for the audio, for the peekings that I just produced.
But
So-
on another note, I did find a really, really cool set of furniture from the 40s. It's a vintage chest of drawers and vanity.
Now we're talking about the important stuff.
Yeah, and I am just so excited. I got them for $50 each. Okay, my dad picked them up in a U-Haul. I am just so excited to have this furniture. So other than like art stuff, I'm very excited for a dresser.
Your dad has been like the MVP of this move. Just
He
from
really
Right?
the stories
He really
told me.
has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He went and toured all the spots.
Yeah.
Looked at everything.
just something with like Midwest dads and like anything relating to like, I don't know. Anytime he can go to like Home Depot or something, like he's all for it. So I feel like this is like kind of in that vein.
You've given him purpose.
Yeah.
So Cheris says, y'all have been a frequent painting companion of mine. So glad to finally catch you live.
Yay.
That makes us so happy to hear, Cheris. I'm so glad you're joining us. So, and then Eric says, thanks for the detailed answers. I have a question regarding ivory black and neutral gray pigments. Is there a reason it seems
using Ivory
less...
Black, I'm excited.
Is there a reason it seems these aren't used to demonstrate skin tones? I believe some of the old masters, including Sargent, used it for this on occasion. And then below that, he says, and when would it be appropriate to use ivory black versus a chromatic black? Would you use it for the local color if the local color was black?
I'm really curious what you're going to say to part 2.
Yeah.
Mind if I jump in with part 1?
However you want. Yeah.
Cool. So I am by no means an expert on this question, but if I understand like part 1 of the question correctly about like the use of ivory black in skin tones, and like why it's not more common, just to make sure, Louis, like I did capture that. Okay.
Yeah, detailed. Yeah, I have a question regarding ivory black and neutral gray pigments. Is there a reason it seems these aren't used to demonstrate skin tones?
Yeah. So one consideration that I'm always making when I am mixing skin tones, and for the purposes of this conversation, again, I'm making an assumption because our sitter today is white and she's fair-skinned. I am making the assumption that we are also talking about people who are white and fair-skinned, but of course this is by no means the case. But typically when we're using any color to either adjust like the hue or the saturation of one of our mixtures, we also want to make sure we're not drastically changing the value in doing so. And so while ivory black could be used to like gray the skin down, it's also going to like really throw a wrench in whatever our existing value level is for that mixture. So typically if I'm looking at a certain color, like if I want to grab a pigment to bring the chroma down of whatever my skin tone mixture is, I'm going to look for something that is as close value-wise as I can get away with. And since ivory black is the most extreme value that you will probably have on your palette, it wouldn't be my first choice. That being said, that's just, oh God, I just touched my microphone a bit. It was terrible.
Oh, no,
that's
okay.
just me.
Beautiful answer.
I do. I like that. That's good stuff.
So I am using ivory black today with my limited palette of, well, I guess it's more like, it's the Florence Academy full palette, basically, what I'm using today, which is ivory black, cobalt blue, English red, vermilion. I have a yellow ochre, and then I'm using genuine Naples yellow dark, and then lead white. So my ivory black, it's really nice in a limited palette if you're using, for example, ivory black, red, yellow ochre, and white, because it's basically a low chroma blue. So it's nice for skin tones in that sense, because you're not creating something super chromatic blue in a flesh tone when you're using a limited palette as an example. And so while what Chelsea says is absolutely true, where if you're adding just ivory black to your mixture, it will absolutely not just cool it down, but darken it for sure. So you can, if you're mixing on your palette, you can mix up and you're using ivory black and you want to cool something down without changing the value, I would mix up a little black and white to make and match the value that you're trying to adjust. That way you're not changing the value, you're just changing the hue or changing the temperature, which is a nice trick when you're mixing your palette in a little bit more of a controlled way of shifting a color if something's not working. So the limited palette, or ivory black, gets a bad rep because it grays things down really easily. but I find that if you use it appropriately, it can be a really nice way of having those harmonious cools in your flesh tones without it overpowering the skin tone. So depending on how you use it.
That's a great, great answer.
Yeah, it's a great point too, because I have absolutely been in the art classes where the instructor will just say, like, no one should have ivory black on the palette. You
Yeah.
should never use ivory black. And if you actually ask them why, I think it's kind of likely that you won't get a super satisfying answer
Yeah.
because there's a lot of like dogma around it. The reality is that so long as the pigment is going to hold up, like it's actually archival, it's safe to use, if that's a consideration, there's not really a reason not to use it. I think honestly, the main reason why oftentimes people are instructed to avoid putting ivory black on the palette is just in the situation where they go right to ivory black for
that's
every
definitely
shadow.
everything.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think it does sink in a lot because of how much oil it takes to create ivory black. And then I guess one of the questions was if you have something black in the painting, if you use straight up ivory black, I probably would mix it with a bit of, I use like vermilion or some sort of red or just something just to add a little bit more color vibration, just because if you go up in the value scale a little bit, then you can add more color, you can start to see more color. So it's nice to have a little bit of that variety in your darks, meaning gentle variety, nothing that should compete with the light, but a little bit, that way it doesn't just kind of go straight black and is not interesting in that area. So it can be nice. But if you want something that's faster drying, then you can maybe use like Mars black, but it has more of like a red purple tint to it. And but it does dry faster.
What did you think about the chromatic black question? Because I actually don't really have experience with it, and I was curious if you had an answer to that question.
I haven't used that either, but it's something where I would just mix ivory black and something, or if I'm not using ivory black, for example, let's say I'm painting something and I need more transparency and ivory black is too opaque, then I would mix up ultramarine and transparent red oxide. Like I create a black that's more transparent. And then that can shift in chroma as well if I wanted it bluer leaning or red leaning or whatever. So that's an example of like, when wouldn't you use ivory black? Like if it's, if your drying time is a concern or the opacity is a concern, things like that.
Yeah, that's actually incidentally like why I don't have ivory black on the palette, is because I really like translucency in the darks, and so I always mix up my black with transparent oxide brown. I could use transparent oxide red like Erica just said, if I just wanted one of those two colors on the palette plus ultramarine.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I think about when I'm teaching is I tell people that black, all it is a low value, low chroma blue.
Exactly.
And when you're looking at making chromatic black, all they're doing is it's just a warmer black versus it being a cooler black. But if you treat it like it's blue, then it gets you a lot further, or a neutral, but I like to say blue because some people overshoot it a lot. So I always say your white and your black are your blue. And so you should continue, because your skin tones, especially if you're painting in warm light or white light, and the skin tones are true to their local color, then there's very few places that are going to be blue. Everything's going to be more on the neutral side. So it's just going to be more helpful to know that it's a crazy blue color as far as skin tones are concerned, if we're doing something in white light or even light. So if it's all a different story if you're doing a night scene or something else where it's, the whole scene is blue, that'll change the skin tone significantly. So yeah.
Thank you. That was a very informative question and a very informative answer from both of you.
So we have Razin who says, I want to ask about Florence Academy of Art. Has one of you ever graduated from this academy? I'm looking for a good academy that has an online choice. If you can help me, thank you. Well, you just happen to be in the right place, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
So, Erica, take it away.
So I did graduate. I graduated in 2017 and taught at the academy for their intensive workshops from 2018 to 2021, basically. And then I still teach with them with their master's program, which is online, or they have a section of it that's remote. So their full-time study, they do not have a remote section because so much of what like a part of the full-time experience is in person, working from life with your model every day, like full-time. Like it's, the certificate program is a commitment for 3 years for sure. But they have the master's program, which is geared mostly towards educators who are wanting to bring the atelier training into their classrooms. I think of what I would have loved to have learned growing up. I was just craving this education growing up. And so, part of it is that, but absolutely anybody is, you're not required to be an educator in order to join the program. We've had professional artists who wanted to study during the summers, and this was the best fit for them. So feel free to send me a DM on Instagram if you have specific questions about that program, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. Versus just what I'm trying to come up with, mid-painting portrait on the fly. So happy to answer any questions about that program. But it was a really great fit for me. I absolutely adored my experience at the academy. And so again, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Perfect. That was really good. We have Amelia who says, just wanted to say hello. I follow Tina on TikTok. Always watch her, and she's the reason I bought the online courses.
Aww.
So that's awesome.
That's so cool. You said her name was Amelia?
Amelia, and her last name is Bugaj.
Aww. Hi, Amelia. Thanks for joining.
And Eric just follows up, says, thanks so much. That helps clear up a lot of the confusion with black. It seems like it is almost a rule to avoid it, which didn't make sense to me. Is ivory black often used to lower the value as a shortcut and then adjust temperature with a warmer earth color?
I wouldn't consider it necessarily a shortcut. I think that when I'm using my palette, like every color kind of goes into any mixture. I don't think of them as separate. And in fact, I think that's what helps create a sense of unity in your painting when you can add a little bit of everything, a little bit of, everywhere, and can create a harmony. And so I think it can prevent having like a section of your painting that's like Viridian and a section of your painting that's yellow ochre, then something that harmonizes. So harmonizes it when you think of your palette this way. So I really advocate for mixing on your palette here and using a palette knife, and that way you're mixing with values and you're using your palette to have an organization, and you can see what is going into what mixtures, and that can help prevent kind of like a section of your painting from looking really chromatic in one area and then not really working elsewhere. So I hope that answered your question, as we just timed out. So
all right, everybody, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will be back in just a moment. All right, everybody, we are back
Silence.
in silence. Exactly.
Oh man, what was I thinking over here?
Me all the time, every day. My favorite is when like Louis will be like coming over and giving me a critique, and he'll be like, "Yeah, this like mark right here, what you did right here." It's like, why did you do that? Like, there's no answer. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It was intentional. I don't know what I was doing either.
I've had that. I got a critique when I was a student. It's like, I don't.
Erica, you need to take yourself off.
Actually, I am off.
Are you really?
I am. Just kidding.
That's the thing. You're such a
I can see
No,
what's
that
going
was
on
me.
here.
That was my fault. No, I did have a critique where it was like, you're over translating. I don't know what you're doing. Like, I don't know what you're looking at. I'm like, ugh, overthinking it.
That's just how I am.
In there. So it has been a hot minute since I've painted a portrait, and I'm feeling all of that rust. So much rust.
Some WD-40.
Bust out the oil can.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like I'm right there with you. Like I haven't done alla prima portrait
Yeah.
in months. So I'm like, what am I doing?
Meanwhile, like anytime we're doing the long pose and like we're coming back session after session, I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like it's like session like 47. I've redrawn the same thing so many times because I can't figure out what to do now.
I find that so interesting, just the differences of like different practices. I'm so glad we have an alla prima painter here.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
I'm happy I can play the token role.
And I'm glad you're next to me so I can look at you and be like, okay, she's doing that. I should do that too.
Incredible.
So, Cheris was saying, I am currently, in parentheses, hopefully, recovering from a, quote, voodoo darkening fiasco. Any of you, have any of you had any experience with this?
Oh my gosh. No, but I watch Ghost Adventures, so I feel like I know what that is kind of like.
I need context. Help us,
Right,
Tina.
I
You've been
think-
so quiet this whole time. Now is your time to shine.
No, I don't know if that's a very good source to go from, though. I don't think it's very educational. I kind of don't want to answer this because I don't want any kind of any curse on me. I don't know.
I feel like what she's getting at might be, it's in quotes, so I'm assuming that it's something to do with the paint just as it dries gets darker in certain areas, and don't know why.
Are we
Like
going
we
to
talk
talk about
about
titanium
flashing.
white flashing now?
So that, what I have heard the term and that we use here is that a term called flashing with titanium white, where it darkens as it gets dry. And it can be uneven depending on how much or how little titanium was in your mixtures, in certain areas. So it can create a splotchy effect. If you're like working in certain areas and you think you have it perfectly matched, and as soon as you let it dry for a bit, you see right where you painted that day. So just let us know if that's what you're talking about, or explain to us what you are talking about if that is not it.
I'm so curious to know. I need answers.
Sort of getting sort of close to Halloween, so she might be like trying to be on theme.
Should bring her in for East October.
Eric says, is medium used often in your mixtures or mostly straight from the tube? I ask because I bought some brushes, Rosemary Eclipse, long filbert, and they're less stiff than I'm used to.
Yeah.
And paint.
What what paint are you using, Eric? Because that will make a difference in answering this question, especially with like the Eclipse combers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Eclipse, as one person described one time, it's like painting with a wet noodle.
Yeah, that's a great
know.
description.
So
For
if
the
you have
Eclipse.
very dense pigment paint colors, like some of natural pigments colors, like some of the lead white will come out like thicker and more dense than toothpaste, like you have to really force it out. And, good luck trying to get that to mix with anything. And in that case, I do use just a hint of oleo gel or linseed oil, depending on who you are and what you like. But just using one drop and then mixing it with your knife until it's completely even can help that scenario. But you really do need it to be a much softer, more buttery kind of paint.
For context, I'm definitely using stiffer brushes than the Eclipse combers, but I've used them enough that I have all the paint that's out right now is Vasari, and it's a much softer paint to where, other than like my initial tone and some of my block in, you can see how wet this was in the early stages. That's just thinned with Gamsol. But everything from here on out, I haven't actually grabbed any of my oleo gel, or in this case, I have Gamblin solvent-free gel medium, which is effectively the same thing. But I could tell you, if I had Eclipse combers out right now, I would have to mix up a lot more paint for one, and I probably would have medium included in it. Not to the point where I would affect the opacity of the paint. You don't necessarily need a lot. There's not like a straight formula. It's more like I just need it to be workable enough that if I have a lot of paint, I can pick it up on the brush. If I'm struggling to pick it up on the brush, I'm going to struggle to deposit it onto the canvas, especially with such a soft brush like that. But I really like the combers. I think they do a great job of like teaching you to use more paint. I think they can help in getting you out of like really tight painting habits. And they also they just teach you to have a much softer hand, because if you try and have a heavy hand with the combers, they will fight you the whole way. So congrats on picking those up, and just know that if you suffer through, it will be worth it. You will find that your painting habits are just much better rounded.
I'm using the Eclipse right now. This is not the comber one, it's just the regular flat one, but I always use it when I'm building form, because it's able to soften and deposit such little paint most of the time. I'm working with very little piles of paint, and I'm just grabbing a little bit of it and just kind of barely touching it and kind of dusting it on the surface, and it does such a good job of depositing a little bit of paint, but also just softening as you go. I love these brushes.
Okay, I think that's fascinating, because we kind of use it for opposite use
reasons.
cases. Yeah. But yeah, it's almost like there's this no man's land in between us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess to your question, Eric, it really depends on what you're wanting the combers for. And you are using medium, right, Tina?
I'm using a little bit of lean medium
Okay.
just to get but I also am using Winsor & Newton paints, which tend to have a higher oil content. So they tend to be more oily. So I don't usually need to use a lot of medium. Whereas Old Holland, for example, is usually heavier, toothpaste consistency paints, which would not work very well with this brush.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, he says he uses Gamblin mainly. So. And Sam says, good luck today. This is Sam McLemore says, good luck today. I'm watching while at home cooking.
Oh, hi, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
You're here in spirit.
That's right.
Wow. That's just...
So Chair says, yes, I thought I was finishing a light skin tone on a portrait. Thought it was done, but next day the value dried completely wrong. Yep. Yeah, we're very familiar with this this incident. So you must be using titanium white as one of the whites you're using. If you switch over to use a different white, that will help. The other thing you can do is that you need to couch your painting, which basically means you need to put a thin layer of color on top on the entire painting, and then work sort of with the entire painting. You can't work just small sections, because if you do, then you're going to get that unevenness. That way you can kind of oil it out, have a bit of the titanium pigment into it, just a little bit, or whatever your skin tone evenness is, and then work into that, and that's going to allow it to dry more evenly. But it's absolutely an issue.
And I had never heard of couching, but I'm also like pretty new to the idea or the issue of titanium flashing. So I'm just like learning all sorts of things today. Thank you.
Of course.
Are you usually a titanium user or a lead?
I am always a titanium user. Mostly just because like when I was a kid, I always like had hot dogs with just ketchup, as kids are wont to do. And then I reached a point where I realized that I would happily eat something else, but I was worried that if I like developed a taste for something more sophisticated, I would want that all the time. This is kind of how I feel about lead white.
Oh my God. I was wondering where you were going to go with that.
Right. It's one of those where like someone starts off, well, tell me the story about this. And you're like, well, I was born. And you're like, oh man, this is going to be a long story. No, that's great. That's a good analogy.
I feel like that about genuine vermilion.
Yeah.
You're like, I know I'm gonna love it.
The other issue though is that like as an alla prima painter, like lead white just makes a little bit less sense for me in general. So like I can get away with it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like because lead white is more transparent for coverage. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
And then for tinting strength.
Yeah.
The tinting power of it's so weak compared to titanium. My favorite mixture actually for doing alla prima painting is sort of half and half titanium and lead, because it's not overpowering and not too cool if you have both of them mixed together.
I was gonna say that's the
it's like
thing
a happy
that
marriage.
I resist about titanium is how opaque and cold it just like.
Yep.
And I'm so used to it that I'm like, all right, well, I'm just suffering through over here, but I'm exposed to less lead and I'm spending less money on paint. So like, yeah.
I will say in terms of lead exposure, like I think as long as you're not touching it or eating it.
Yeah. I always just like even after I use cadmiums, I'm like, okay, I know I can't see anymore on my skin, but I just don't know what trace amounts are there.
Yeah.
And even as like a pretty clean painter, I don't have a ton, like I'm not the painter where you see it on my clothes after, or where like I have to wear like an apron or something.
Yeah.
But even so, I get it.
Yeah. It's just like peace of mind sometimes. Yeah, I get it.
Actually, for that reason, I bought from Natural Pigments. They have a G-lead soap, which is an abrasive soap. And so I like to use that. Just, if I get paint on my hands, I just use it.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like a lava soap?
Hmm?
Is it kind of like a lava soap? Is it green?
No, it's actually orange.
It's orange. Okay.
Yeah, and it's for heavy metals.
Oh, that's great.
That's so interesting. I might have to get some of that.
I have some if you want to use it.
Is it like a bar soap or it's like a liquid?
You can squirt it out.
Oh.
I wonder if it's like that orange soap, that you see like.
It is orange.
Is it gritty?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because it's
okay.
abrasive. Yeah.
I have used that in high school. We had that in high school actually.
So just for peace of mind,
I was going through and really meticulously trying to like match all this color, and interestingly, all of the mixtures felt like they made no sense, and I was kind of sick of having like a patchwork color situation that I'm now just YOLOing it, and we'll see how that works out for me.
Stay tuned, everyone.
Yeah.
So Iona says, I heard cadmium can't be absorbed through the skin, and that is correct. It is not something that can be absorbed through the skin. The pigments are too large for your pores, so it can actually go that way. So most of the time when we're talking about having heavy metals on our hands, it's more about when that becomes in contact with food. If you over time have just a bit of residual left on your hands, or even on surfaces. Now, I will say, and people here have heard me say this already a couple of times, but recently, because I work with lead every day and cadmium and all sorts of things, I asked the last physical I went to when I get my blood work to do a lead test. It's the first time I've had one done in like 10, 15 years. So I wanted to make sure that all these years of handling lead, and I don't always wear gloves. I don't. I am a very clean painter, but at the same time, I'll just like wash my hands afterwards and go eat. I pay attention, but it's not like I'm not crazy about it. And so I got my test back, and it was undetectable.
Good.
So
That's great.
So it's just good to know. And we were talking, I think it was Eric and I were talking about like in history where people got a lot of lead poisoning. It was in everything. It was in flavoring food. It was in some of their alcoholic drinks.
It was in like powder for your face and wigs.
Oh yeah, it was
I
exactly.
think
It was in their
if
makeup.
anybody knows that Instagram account, like was it Jackson's?
Art
where they talk
supplies or
about
something. Yeah.
where they talk about pigments.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool. The girl was talking about how they used it to sweeten their wine,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
fascinating.
So, and lead is notoriously sweet.
It was in the pipes.
Yeah, it's in
It
all
still
of the
is.
pipes. It
Yeah.
still is in all of Italy, like the old pipes. I mean, they were using it back in ancient Rome for their pipes because it's just not non-corrosive. So they had access to a lot of ways of getting lead because they just didn't know at that time. So not to be fearful of it. It's good to be cautious and very concerned, but at the same time, not to the point where you feel like you can't work with it.
What would happen if they were to detect lead in your system? Is there like a cure? Like what would you
Yes.
do?
There are treatments.
Ah.
You wouldn't necessarily call them cures, but your body gets rid of lead at a very, very slow rate. The same with cadmium. It just usually what you want to do is make sure that it is getting rid of the lead faster than what you are absorbing. That's kind of one of the goals there. But they have a special treatment that they can give you because what happens is it absorbs into your bone and mimics calcium.
Oh.
And so you don't, like, your body doesn't detect that it's there, but then it can, mess up your neurology and all the things. Anyway, they have a way of having like a separate diffusion format happen where it leaches it back out of your bones and,
Wow.
and basically passes through your lymphatic system.
Interesting.
But that's when it's just honestly in severe cases,
Well, it's good to know that it's not just like, yeah, good luck, you're gonna die. I'm glad that there's like something that they can do.
Yeah, that would really stink to be like, well, what can we do, doctor? Well, live with it.
Sorry.
It's like that Louis C.K. bit where he's like, I went to the doctor and the doctor I was like, I have this, something's wrong with my ankle. He goes, yeah, man, you've looked at the x-rays. Yeah, you've really screwed up your ankle. And he's like, well, what should I do about it? He's like, nothing. You're just going to live with it now. It's like, well, can I stretch it out? And so, oh yeah, you can stretch. Make sure you stretch every day. And is that going to help? No, that's just something you do now. you stretch, it's like no hope. His timing on those things are so good. Everyone, we are 30 seconds away from the next break.
Just in time for me to really obliterate my value control.
I hear you.
Let's mess it. Yeah.
See, this is 5 minutes timeout.
when you put it like that.
Love it. All right, everybody. We will be taking a break and we'll be back shortly. All right, everybody, we are back. And as always, it was a lively conversation when y'all were gone. Y'all missed out on everything.
Did you unmute yourself, Erica?
I did, actually. No, I didn't.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think you did.
That's good.
I really like your pants, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
All right. All right. I filled all the color in. I guess I can fix some glaring drawing errors now.
That's my least favorite part. I'm always in deep denial about
I think it's fine.
Just don't look at it for too long.
I don't like this brush for this task.
You use it anyway?
I have like 14 other brushes. No, we're committed now. Yeah, no, this brush sucks. It's taking time out. Fine.
It's always the brush's fault.
Yeah.
Never the
Yeah, for
artist.
Yeah.
sure.
That's why it's so important for everyone to know every color on our palettes and what surface we're using and every brush that we plan on using.
It's so true.
Because my tools are the only reason that I'm good at this.
Absolutely.
Iona says, when you're painting, how often do you rationalize what you're seeing, i.e., this plane of the face is turning away, so it must be darker value versus just painting what you see?
Oh.
At first, I thought
I
it was
know.
like you convincing
Really
yourself that
calling
you're
me
right.
out?
Yeah.
No, I thought the exact same thing.
No, I use logic, like that kind of logic all the time, where I'm like, where's the light coming from? What are the planes of the face? Where are they facing? And it really helps me organize, again, the chaos of nature in front of me, the beautiful chaos, but it's still chaotic. And so that way it helps me know where my values are. And then for me to check when I'm looking at the painting, does that make sense? It's like if I make, for example, the my left side of the face too dark, then it won't make sense because the light is coming from front and then like that to the side. So that's why this shadow is here. And so I have to make sure that my values here are dark enough to show that like where the light is coming from. So I think about that logic all the time.
I think it's really important to note because I've started doing this more and more, especially with value control, which like don't look at that on this painting right now because I literally have the exact same level highlight at like 7 different places on her face and I need to fix it and create more of a hierarchy based on where the light is coming from and what the strongest highlight should be. But my caveat with like acknowledging that I think about this more and more is that I think that I'm at the point where I can juggle enough active items that go into the painting where I can do that successfully. I think in the beginning, I often see painters fall into the trap of theorizing
Yes.
and saying like, okay, well, the light here is cool, so I have to go orange in the shadows. And then they're really confused why the shadows don't look right because they're not actually just guessing and checking and
Or, like,
actually seeing
observing,
what it is.
right.
Exactly. Observing. That's a much better way to put it. So I think in the beginning, we're often much better served by simply observing. Even if we are having to like work really hard because we don't necessarily have a clear mental schema. That's sort of the beauty of like the long-term mastery of painting is that I think the longer we go, the more we can juggle a lot of these things.
100%.
And it's easier to really deep dive into the
You learn
theoretical
why,
understanding.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I like to use I'm just going to call it the logic. And we like to use it as a way of checking my observation to see if it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, for example, during the break, I stepped really far back and then just looked at my values and I was looking at how far apart that they were and I need to correct that. And I was looking at how light this side of her head was compared to here. And I actually need to darken this side because it doesn't make sense for it to be that bright. And so that's an example of using the logic of the direction of the light to help correct my painting.
That's a great way to describe that.
And same thing if I conceptualize her face or her head like a sphere, and I have a top plane, kind of a upward facing plane, and then how the chin is under the cheekbones up here. So this can't be as bright as I have it, because right now it's basically like the same as the forehead, which doesn't make sense if I want, spatially and where the light is. So there are things where it's like, when I'm just looking at her, it could look like all the same color value, but really it's not. It's subtle. And so this can help you, or the logic can help you with the observation.
Yeah, I like that idea of like the order of operations. Like the logic shouldn't predate the observation. Like
Or you should work
observe.
with it and like
Yeah.
not be like, it's not a rule that's like that you can't see. You know what I mean?
That's good stuff.
We're just really good at this.
I'm learning from you guys.
Yes.
Those like videos on the internet that are about, oh, painting is so relaxing. It's so, and then there are ones where it's like just like somebody screaming or like, I'm like, that's probably more accurate just because it's like so many things going on. I'm
Have
like,
you ever seen that one meme? I think it's like, I don't even know where it's from, but he's putting down like a yellow brush mark and he's like, this is called screaming yellow. And he screams at the painting.
that's so
Can you
good.
start
Yeah.
sending me these memes?
I was gonna say I haven't seen it, but I want to.
Oh, you gotta
Yeah.
see it.
I think I even sent that to our sort of group chat.
Yeah.
It
was a while
back. It's like, how's your day going or something like that.
Yeah.
And the guy's like literally as he paints the screaming yellow, he's like,
That's how I
it's really
feel.
good. So Eric says, let's see, is it okay to use white to increase the value of the color used to tone the canvas or for the block in? I've noticed it seems the color is usually just thinned with Gamsol instead. And he continues saying, and I seem to have an easier time when I tone the canvas with a cooler or more neutral color for portraits versus a warmer color, as I find the warm color is too close to the skin tone color. But I don't usually see a cool color. It must be that he's texting like on a phone because they're all kind of broken up. Usually see a cool color used under a portrait. Is there a reason for this?
I can't really speak to the order or the color temperature portrait side in case anyone wants to tackle that.
I usually like to have my tone be more on the warmer side because I like when the warmth peeks through when I add cool on top of it. So I kind of use that to my advantage and create like a warm-cool relationship without needing to add a warm. Instead, I'm just adding a cool on top of a warm. And there was a part of that question where he was asking about adding white in order to make the tone lighter instead of using Gamsol. And I would suggest just using the Gamsol to get a lighter tone because I used raw umber for my tone and it is very, very light because I used a little bit of paint and a lot more Gamsol. And it kind of, you can manipulate it a little bit easier without needing to like waste your paint, waste your white. So
I would add to that by saying like for the kind of Richard Schmid Putney painters approach where you will really lean into transparent paint application, not like glazing, but like where you have, please no one think that I'm comparing this to Richard Schmid, but these areas of like largely transparent oxide red or brown toned down with a little bit of ultramarine, like I am intentionally trying to get some translucency there. That's not like a Richard Schmid looking brushstroke, but it's the transparency that I'm really calling attention to. I cannot do that if there is white on the canvas because the opacity of the white will interact with the transparent pigments and it will just make it cloudy. And so if you do have any intention of deliberately preserving transparency, especially in your darks, especially in the early layers, it's really important that you not put white down. But that's less important if you are if indirectly and if you aren't like intentionally trying to get that effect from the paint.
Yes, and I always tell people it's so sad if they aren't using that as one of their properties of art making. It doesn't have to be at all. I mean, there's some beautiful opaque painters out there. But one of the beauties of oil paint is its ability to be transparent. So to use that as part of one of the properties of hierarchy in your painting really can benefit you once you've learned how to control it. So that's really good. As far as speaking for the tone, I agree with Tina. You absolutely could use white into your mixture to create a certain tone and then let it dry. And then you don't have to worry about transparency until the next layer after it's dried. However, you can achieve the same effect without having to use extra paint. And so it will just be more affordable to not do that. And I actually prefer sort of the wipey marks that you can create with a toned, thin, transparent one versus it being like less organic looking or more even. So there's something about the unevenness texture of the tone mixed with the more solidified relationships of the skin that actually have a nice contrast between each other, especially when
There's
you're
like a
doing
mark
olive
making play
100%.
that versus like a buildup of texture, but like a movement in the marks that you're making.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like if you compare what happens on the left side of my painting right now, like it's not so much about the beauty of the mark in this case, but the really incredible thing about like a transparent pigment like transparent oxide red, which is like the dominant color here, you actually get like this really beautiful hue shift as the color, as the pigment goes more toward translucency. Compare that to like this area where I've already put down some like flesh tone for her décolletage, and I worked some of the hair into it. And it just kind of goes like straight to mud because I didn't reserve the white thoughtfully. I went down a little bit too early with it, which isn't the end of the world by any means, but it's just like one less opportunity for me to actually make that mark. I would have to take like my silicone tool and like wipe all of the titanium white out and go back in with my transparent oxide red to try and reapproach that. If I were really upset about that and wanted to fix it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I love the point on that the hue shift changes between opacity and transparency, you know, where often it is that it is warmer when it's more transparent in its relationship and cooler when it's more opaque with most colors. So yes, that's such a great point because then you can create a vibration without having to actually add too much extra colors where you just have the vibration happening by themselves, which, you know, Michael used all the time. He would add white to it and then create a transparent relationship because he was using lead and then you're thinning it and you can create even a more cool, warm relationship with it and make it feel more transparent. So there's ways to do that. It's just depends on how you like to apply. And my thing, which I always tell people is keeping it understood throughout your entire painting of what things mean, making that consistent all the way throughout your painting.
How dare you take my beautiful argument and turn it into you should really use titanium white. Ugh, damn.
Good stuff. Let's see. Oh, and as far as the cool color, talk about the tone, one of the things I wanted to say about that is that, you know, you can absolutely make a portrait or skin tone pop, anything pop, if you're using like a complementary undertone. My caveat to that is that you could create cool, interesting things that happen now. However, most whites out there become more transparent over time. So what's going to happen eventually is that your painting that was really popping is going to gray out. Now, when I say eventually, we might not even be talking about your lifetime, depending on what kind of white you use. But whites turn transparent, especially lead, over time. And so if you have a tone underneath it that is complementary to it, it's going to gray out the painting eventually. So just know that as that's going to be a part of the life of the painting when you're working with it. But it is a way to separate your skin tones. I think it is more of an advanced approach to be able to do it on a more toned, closer to skin tone color canvas than it is if it's a lot more separate from what you're seeing. So there's lots of pitfalls and different people see differently. And so, neutral color can throw people off and make more neutral paintings too. So it depends on how your eye is perceiving, because we all have different perception. So
That's gonna be my go-to compliment. I'm gonna be like, Erica, your painting is popping.
Thank you.
That lead white. Mm.
I know. So tempting though.
All right, all right.
It's funny that, it's funny. I'm suffering through it. The same, the same things I struggled with when I was a student, still struggling with them now, always.
Yeah.
Just like in different ways. Oh, so annoying.
Just, you will never lose your tendencies.
It's like, oh, I already know that I have a lot to learn. I don't need to keep knowing that. Like,
It's like, why do I continually get humbled when I'm
like
already very
I
humble?
never thought.
like, I'm humble enough.
Yeah, like, come on.
Now you're just being mean.
I'm the humblest guy I know.
No, but for me, it's I separate my lights and my darks too far, and so to bring them together, I'm trying to not have like screaming highlights and super aggressive chroma, and I'm trying to find that gentle, delicate bridge between light and dark, which is just not. I have to fight that, or to fight in order for that to happen. Ironically, fighting to be delicate, but every time I have to do it. Has to do my mark making, same thing. Trying to be gentle. Things that I've learned that are helpful is to hold the brush from far away, not like what I've been doing, which is holding it up here. I also had the tendency of pushing the paint in. So if you hold the brush from far away and then let the panel accept the paint rather than me forcing it.
I find that's like one of the things the combers are great for.
Yeah.
Because like you can't do it.
Exactly.
And if you have that tendency, the combers will
Exactly.
kind of force you to rebuild your muscle memory.
So I'm being self-aware as to, gently putting down the paint, not having to like slammed in there. And what happens is then it can delicately lay on top and work with what you've put down versus like smashing and sharpening every edge with like lips of paint every time. There's a time and a place for that, but maybe not when I'm just trying to lay down paint. So, or trying to fix something, delicate is best. So I can talk a good game about it, know how to do it. So.
Yeah.
It's funny. I find that I really enjoy like points that you just made like that around things like mindset. I find that my mindset when I am in here painting with you all is very different from the mindset I have in my studio. And it's like just one of many reasons why I always love coming here and getting to paint with you all. Because I like, on top of the really good company, which I could talk about all day, I find that my mindset is like way more curious and less judgmental.
Love that.
Yeah. And like, I think this is something I talk to my students about all the time is I think you just embodied it really beautifully just then when you were talking, Erica, that I think the beginner temptation is like, ugh, I suck at this. I'm never going to get it. I don't know why this isn't working. Like, I'm always going to struggle with this. This is just like who I am. Is this ever going to get better? I thought that going to Florence Academy would fix this, or whatever your internal narrative sounds like. I find the mark of like the painter who is really mastering her craft is that you have a lot more patience with yourself, but also curiosity around like why things are going wrong or why you are falling back into certain habits. And yeah, I find my habits here painting from life with friends for you all. Maybe it's just because I'm having to talk through my process, or maybe it's just because I have to really like own my mistakes, and it feels way more fun if I own the mistakes when they happen than feeling really stressed that you all are going to realize that like I'm actually an imposter who somehow got invited here by mistake.
No.
I actually have to force myself into a much healthier mindset that's like way more enjoyable. But the important piece of this isn't for me to pat myself on the back. It's like, "Ugh, I'm just so good at like I'm such a like psychologically I'm so well developed. I've just really come so far." That is not the point of this. The point of this is to say like you can start adopting that mindset earlier. And I find that the earlier painters like really get curious and they stop judging themselves, the faster they actually learn and the more they enjoy what they're doing.
100%. I think it also is something when you're doing this as your profession every day, you're going to confront at some point questioning why you're doing this, and questioning to, or you know, paying attention to your self-talk, where it's important that you are supporting yourself in your head along the way. Like, it's good to have a critic, so that way you're always going forward and not just content with everything all the time. Like, it's good to have a healthy critic that can say, this can get better, and you will want to improve, and always searching, more curiosity mindset, like you're saying, Chelsea. But at the same time, like, you have to be with yourself every day. And so it's actually not very helpful if you're just saying my work sucks, because you're not growing from that.
Yep.
I really like that description of like you have to be with yourself. I'm going to be thinking about that after we're done today.
Chair says, maintain beginner's mind. You are all awesome. Every single artist struggles with the imposter syndrome moments. It's easy to also play the comparative game that can put you in a spiral. What we don't realize is that we think that when we're comparing, that they have everything else going perfect in their life or in their way of doing things, but their struggles are just different struggles. Yeah. And they're having a hard time not playing the comparative game themselves, and have an imposter moment, that happens. So I think that's just part of our human nature. You have to just fight through it and be okay with it, and also be okay with, I was talking about this with another dear artist friend today on the phone, is that, you have the comedians of the world. If anyone has ever listened to the Joe Rogan show at any point and listened to other comedians get on there with him, you'll notice that every single one of every time that they're on there, Kevin Hart or, Adam Sandler or whoever, they'll get on there and they'll talk about the times they bombed, and that they still bomb. Chris Rock gets up sometimes onto the stage at, a comedy club and goes, just letting you know, I'm not going to be funny tonight.
Yeah.
I'm trying some new material out, but that they have their own struggles, that every time we see them on a special, that's stuff that's been refined over a long period of time, but they have to practice that. They have to try it out and they have to see what's going on. And so it's easy for us to get down on ourselves because we don't have perfect jokes coming right out the gate, or we have perfect strokes coming out right out the gate, So it's just good and healthy for all of us to realize that, Rembrandt had a bad day, and everybody had a bad day. And sometimes you can see that in some of their drawings. And some people are like, oh, that was perfectly intentional. That was natural. That was exactly what he was seeing. That's exactly what he wanted us to see. No, it could have been that he was just having a bad day. It's okay too, to know that, we don't need to put them so high on a pedestal that we make them inhuman.
Yeah, I had a student this week actually ask me, like, they were talking about all of their favorite painters, and those could be old masters, but in this case, we were talking about like some contemporary masters. And like this student who's very well versed in so many things painting, and it wasn't just this student either, like asked me in earnest, do these painters ever throw out paintings? And I was like, oh my goodness, yes, they do.
Oh my gosh, 100%.
Especially if they're the painter where you look at everything that you can find that they've made and everything looks incredible. Like that's how you know that they're absolutely throwing paintings out.
Burning them, having a bonfire or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely paintings that I still make today that probably won't pass, like maybe something that someone saw online somewhere, that will not see the light of day past that point.
Yeah.
So, all right, everyone, that's another break. We will be back in a little bit. Okay, everyone, we are back.
So with ballroom,
Mhm.
for everyone, we're having a completely unrelated conversation, just for everyone's context. So Erica used to be into figure skating. I
Back in the day.
am into ballroom dancing. In ballroom, when you are in certain age levels or proficiency levels, you are not allowed to have certain adornments on your costume. Is this the same in figure skating?
I don't remember that being a thing. I think
Did you
there's.
have like rhinestones and
Oh yeah, and we would add more rhinestones. Yes,
Yes.
to the dress.
Yep.
There's never enough.
Exactly.
There's
You would
never
add
enough
them.
rhinestones.
You
And
would
it's
glitter
such a
your hair.
satis-
Like it's the
Mhm.
best thing.
It's such a satisfying process because
it.
you just put on a television show and you get out your PVA glue, or it's like some kind of fabric glue.
Yep.
And you just put like a few dozen like dots of glue, and then you get your little wax like picker and you pick up a stone and you place it on a dot, and you pick up a stone and place it on a dot. It's
Wow.
very meditative. It's part of why like the costumes are expensive, because you have to hand stone them.
Mhm.
Either you're doing it or someone else is doing it, or both. I guess now that I've given that explanation, I can start my video and start painting.
Amelia says, is there any chance you guys know of a good art school, classes, or workshops in Florida? Thank you.
In Florida itself, I think there's somewhere in Miami. I can't remember the name, but I read some of my FAA people. I think like Ramiro did a workshop in Miami, but I don't know the name of the studio off the top of my head.
I feel like Kristen Yen would be a great person to reach out to because she's in Florida and she would know probably more.
Yeah, Kristen Yen would. I want to say there's a gentleman that has like an atelier. You can go, one place to go, a resource to go would be the Art Renewal Center website. They will have all of the registered ateliers in the country and elsewhere, I think, on there. So you could check and see right there what's available in Florida. Communities wise, you might not even need a full art school if you can just find a very strong, solid community of professional painters that do something that's very similar to what you do. It's easy to kind of like, in a way, it's easy to kind of connect to the local artists that are professionals in the area. Most people are very gracious about you coming over and seeing what they have going on. And often professional artists will have some form of community that they try to create, whether it be just a figure night, open figure night where people can come and paint. There's many people that do something like this. Like we're talking about, is it Ramiro, right? Not Ramiro,
Sanchez.
not Ramiro. What's his name in Chicago?
Romel.
Ramel. Very close to Ramiro.
Romel
So-
Del Torre.
Yeah, I mean, he has his own thing. Daniel Sprick has like a huge community of artists that come over to his open figure nights that he does. So you'd be amazed. I would first start with Art Renewal Center and see what you can find from there.
And sometimes even starting locally, even like your local library might do some kind of like art show or something. And that might be your way in to kind of start to know your art community, and then, obviously network and connect with other people who might be doing some sort of figure night or portrait session or something.
Yeah, I think just to add on to this conversation, it's always really interesting to me. I definitely fell into this trap personally, but I see a lot of other people do this too, where, they haven't gone to art school and they feel like the only way to really make up for it is to potentially go the atelier route. But their favorite painters paint in a style that's entirely removed from what anyone who has come out of that atelier does. And so I do think it's really helpful. Like if you have a favorite painter and they teach, they offer workshops, like there are opportunities for you to go and like travel and actually interact with that person and learn a little bit more about what they would recommend, or even just like kind of get your basis from an in-person workshop and run with some of their instruction on your own, or maybe they can connect you with others. I think that can be a really effective route for a lot of folks.
Yeah, something that I used to do before I came to East Oaks, because I was always curious to know like how I can learn how to paint like the painters I enjoy. I would just go on their website and look at their about page and see where they studied and see what their education came from, and kind of make my decision based on that. Especially if they're not teaching it, you can just go directly to the source of where they learned.
Yeah, there's a significant amount of artists now that are self-taught just from workshops alone.
Yeah, it's definitely
sort of the younger
my
generation.
experience.
Yeah, Alex Venezia being one of them. Jared, did he self-taught from workshops?
Yep.
So
Wow.
there's quite a few of them. I think Stephanie Page Thompson, same thing. Maddie Neal's, well, you know, her
I don't know if
dad.
that counts.
Her dad is, you know,
Yeah,
one of
her
the
dad's like
most
the
known
guy.
painters in the country. So she has somebody right available every day. But quite a few. She says, "Thank you so much. That helps a lot. I'm a tattoo apprentice that's 18, trying to find more art opportunities. Love it. There's a lot of overlap between doing tattoo work and classical painting. You know, David Gluck is a person who does professional tattooing as a way to make their main source of income, and still paints on the side. I think he was a Florence Academy guy, wasn't he, Erica? David Gluck and
I
Kate Stone.
do not know him, but
Yeah,
that
I think
doesn't mean that's
I
not
think he
true.
was in. If it wasn't there, it would have been one of the other ones, Angel Academy, or it was in Florence for sure, whichever one he studied under. But he went to an atelier and then came out and is now still a full-time tattoo painter.
Sure.
That's kind of painting.
Yeah.
So so anyway, it's a very viable career.
I don't know if I could be a tattoo artist. I have high respects for people who are tattoo artists. I don't think I could do something that is so permanent on someone's body. I'd be so worried about messing it up.
Yeah, you think Alla Prima is
Yeah, right?
pressure-inducing, yeah. Oh, man.
Painting is like scary enough for me sometimes. A lot of the time, actually.
Yeah.
Ooh, our model is saying to check out their local art council for any kind of community or resources. That's great. Yeah.
Jerry says Art League of Jacksonville. Kevin Arthur kicks ass is what it says. I thought there was one in Jacksonville. I just could not remember what it was. I'm intended to even check it out when I was there, because I knew that there was one there. But alas, we didn't get to that. Too much time on the beach. Yes, she says, yes, definitely. I'm a classical painting lover. I started with portraits. I've been doing it forever and wanted to incorporate the classical art into tattooing. There is also another classical painter that I met at Portrait Society that lives, I think, in Pensacola, and is a full-time tattoo artist now as well, and loves it. But at the same time, it was a way for him to do the same thing, find a way that he could sort of marry what he loves about painting with a field that he finds interesting and that can make it a decent living at. I feel like I remember reading something somewhere that there are more tattoo parlors in the country than Starbucks.
What?
I think so.
That makes me like giddy with happiness, actually. Oh man, that's just the wrong color.
Actually, our model's doing such a great job there being a statue. Yet again, everyone, you can get the reference images on the link below in YouTube, our YouTube description. So check it out and paint along with us. Everyone's getting very serious now. We've got less than an hour to get this done.
All right, what's happening here? I'm like having such a great time.
Yeah, it is. It's a good time, man. It's looking great, Chelsea.
I can't tell if that's like a pained laugh or like you're actually enjoying.
No, I like actually am. It just, I immediately think about that like quote from You've Got Mail, where like it's like, I can't believe you're like saying at a time like this. Like there's people who brag because they're tall. Like, I feel like when we're all like doing this from life and the clock is ticking, it's like somehow very rude to be like, I'm just so happy we're all painting here. Yeah. Everything is just going really well. That's not actually true. It's not really about it going well.
Just reminds me of like the entire quote for all of East October was, wow, this is just so much fun.
I'm having so much fun.
It's utter turmoil.
Those days were nuts.
Yes, they were.
Did you see the state of our pumpkin outside? Doesn't look good. The pumpkin
deer
that came from the pumpkins that we smashed after East October.
Oh no.
Yeah, it accidentally, we planted a pumpkin plant or a squirrel did or something.
Oh.
But the deer have since eaten
Oh.
most of it, unfortunately.
feel.
Okay, all right. There's like a temperature thing happening, which proves that if you get the value right, color doesn't matter. But if I could fix it, that'd be like kind of cool. No temperature pun intended. Okay.
Love
All right, let's see.
Like, what is that? God, I hope that's on right in the middle of the camera. It will be. Oh. Most of the time, I just pretend I'm not on camera, that nobody can see me or hear me, and that's where we're at.
I think, I don't know if this has like the intended effect or not the intended effect, but I feel like it's part of what makes your personality on air so enjoyable is that you're like, I don't know,
That's
it's
where
like
I'm
what
at.
Truman's showing you right now. Like,
So Harriet says, how do you deal with painting an eye that is mostly in shadow, as in the side of a face? Just a smudge of compressed shadow skin color in an eye shape is how I intuitively approach it.
Yeah, I think compression is your friend.
Mhm. Explain compression to people who may have never heard that term.
Compression is another way of saying value grouping. So if I have my hierarchy of values here, and let's say I have 7 values, and I could separate, each value into its own tile to create this gradation. But you can compress, for example, values 7 through 5 into one value that's kind of like the average of all of those little shifts. And what happens is that it creates the big impression of, rather than having every little thing separated, you're grouping things together. So you're getting a big impression. You're seeing how, for example, I could separate down here in the shadow on the side of her cheek. If I looked at it, I could find, 7 values just in this like little section here. But I'm choosing to only really have like 1 or 2. Should only be 1, but here we are. So what this does is that it helps simplify. It helps your eye not get caught up in too many details. It helps it not feel like there's like a weird amount of form in an area that you want to go away. There are a lot of things. It helps you see the bigger picture of this whole plane facing one direction, all grouping together. So if I had like my chart, I have like a nice like visual chart that I have for my students that talks about compression. I wish I had it with me to like show you, but that's probably the lowdown on compression I can come up with on the fly. It's so useful to. One way you can see it is if you step back and squint. For example, if I'm stepping back and squinting at the model, then I'm not seeing, and I look at the focal point, which is like, her eyes. I squint down and I look in my periphery vision at the hair. I'm going to group all of those values to be something really close together, averaging and like into my darks. It's really close to my shadows. So that's an example of compression and grouping. But if I open my eyes and I stare at the hair, I can find all sorts of value shifts. So you want to compress your values, group them together, find how similar they are versus how different.
It's great.
I like how excited you got when you started talking about the chart.
I do love a good chart.
Yeah.
So Eric was asking, is there a good alternative to permalba white that has the similar properties to it, but might be more archival?
Titanium.
Yep.
Yeah, because if I recall correctly, permalba is just titanium plus zinc. And yeah, the chief concern with the zinc being the cracking. Yeah, I would say just testing different brands of titanium for the consistency that you want so that you can actually match what you like about Permalba's consistency. I understand. I understand like the tinting strength will be different. It's going to have like different properties. But if you can just kind of suffer through the letdown of like, it's just not Permalba.
Sometimes you just have to get over the habit of
Yeah.
what you enjoy about those properties and learn the new properties of the other thing, because it's all about control.
Yeah.
Knowing how to control it. Flake white's another thing you could, but that has lead
Yeah,
in
it's
it.
like
And
flake white is
so-
lead.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that would be something that they're not interested in because he had already talked about being fearful of lead. So
I think I know Gamblin
flake white
makes it.
replacement. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's another possibility. So because the whole idea, I think, of Permalba was that it had a twinge of transparency to it because of the zinc.
Mm.
And so they're trying to mimic that property.
This like takes me back to when, oh my gosh, am I going to remember the brand? It was Richard Schmidt's preferred brand of titanium white. And I'm just like really blanking on the name because it's been too long since I've like reread all of Prima 2. Lefranc. He liked it for its consistency primarily. And it got discontinued, and there was like a big Facebook thread of painters talking about how to find like a decent alternative to it. And I just remember one particular painter just saying Permalba, and like they just like all caps, like all the different letters repeating over and over, like they had just found manna from heaven. So I think about that every time I think about Permalba.
That's so funny. Yeah, we're on break, everyone, but just to kind of, there's something I was going to say to that as well, but I can't remember what it was now. The person they asked how long until you start seeing cracking happen from zinc. I mean, I've heard people have cases that it was if you had a certain like level that was really, really high on it, that it could happen in a very short amount of time, like a couple of years. Whereas I've heard, 10 years, you should possibly see a decent amount of cracking. So it would be within your lifetime, you would see things not behaving the way you want to. Always use a solid substrate instead of canvas. If you are wanting to use something that is less archival and cracking prone, because it will help reduce the risk of cracking. On that note, we will be back in just a few minutes.
It is so true, though.
Yeah.
Ovis, you look so silly with your hook.
Yes. I kind of think it looks like the Riddler, you know, where he has his like Riddler staff that has a question mark on it, you know?
Yeah.
And this is more of like the Jim Carrey, I guess, back in the day, you know, the 90s. What was it, Batman Forever?
I'm not the
I think
person
it
to
was.
ask.
Yeah. I'll ask Carla next time.
Yeah.
She's here.
Yeah.
She can help me out.
She could help you.
So yes, for everyone, I have a staff that has a hook on it that helps me move things in this studio to the right position, and I'm holding it right now. So, and I'm going to put you on camera so that people see that you're trying to record me while the recording is going on.
And I'm recording you.
It's very meta happening here, you know. You recording me, recording you, recording things.
All right, fine.
So
you win
I
this
think
time.
I think you have 30 minutes left. You better get
Okay,
back
I guess I'll
to your
paint.
painting. I know you're having a lot of fun with it, so you better keep going with the fun.
Don't mess it up.
Don't
Be
screw
a
it up.
shame if something happens to that nice painting you've been working on.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds like something like a mafia person would say. Be like, this would be really sad if something bad happened to it.
That's not the right.
So this is interesting. Gail says, hello, Gail from Oregon. Apparently, I was stuck in some sort of YouTube parallel universe with about a dozen other people who think this live stream has never started or was never started. That's interesting, Gail, because there was a few issues that we had earlier on, and I kind of was scared that there might have been some sort of issue like that, especially considering that our numbers usually that are watching is a little bit higher, which is really sad because it's been a very entertaining evening with Painting from Life. But I think the good thing is we have the recording. You can watch it again, but we always appreciate our people that watch along with it live. It kind of add to the conversation.
Quick makeup for all the lost time with
Okay,
every
yes.
question that you
Yep.
could have possibly asked.
Value compression.
Yep. Value compression, Primala white, transparent
Ivory
colors.
black.
Yeah, ivory black. We've had some really good conversation. So make sure you check back on it, Gail, and go hail all the other people. Hail the people,
go
Gail.
to the jump multiverses.
And make sure that everyone that's in that other parallel universe gets brought back to the fold.
Poor guys, they're just like waiting for the show to start.
Yeah, I know.
Never
They're
started.
probably sitting there commenting and be like, this is not going on. What's
Like,
going on here?
Hello.
So that's really, yeah. Hello. I should put on the echo thing on here. See if I can make that happen. Let's see. Oh, I can't remember which one it is. There is one I have on here that will make your voice sound like you're just like in an echo.
Just
room,
pretend.
like a chamber. Yeah.
Improv. Pretend.
Hello.
No.
That just reminds me of the Grinch, Jim Carrey, when he's like, you know, echoing in his room over there, and he's like, "How are you?" You know, and then it starts saying the wrong thing back to him. So.
Has anyone seen Brother Bear? That animated one?
It's been a long time.
Well, there are these mountain goats, and they're fighting with other mountain goats, but it's just their echoes, and that's like a whole bit. It's so funny. Really good movie. It's like, you shut up. No, you shut up. And then he's arguing with himself, but it's just the echo. I love that movie.
Okay. What even is a nose?
Don't ask me.
Sounds like we're starting to have some existential issues here.
Doesn't take much.
Yeah, exactly.
Erica
Definitely for
on the verge of
artists.
tears.
What even is any of this?
Is there a reason we cannot see the model? Well, I don't have enough cameras here to put one live on the model. I hope to, in the future, have an extra camera that we might be able to have on the model so you can see what she looks like live. However, you can see what she looks like on our reference images so that you can paint along. But we have done shots of a live model in the past where instead of having a wide angle shot of the artist, we have one on the model. If that's something that interests people, we might try to do that in the future.
Yeah, let us know by heckling us.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'm so still. I think I'm just.
I like that.
Seriously, though, you're doing amazing.
Yeah.
Gail says, just saw Erica's painting at Martin House Gallery
Oh.
yesterday.
Oh, cool.
She said she loved the hellebores.
Thank
Aw.
you.
That's awesome. Gail did
Thank you.
said that we did have a fairly lengthy conversation, re the possible problems that we were having on the YouTube channel.
Aw.
So it's like, oh, that's such a bummer. We're going to work that out where that doesn't happen again next time.
I should have included some behind the scenes B-roll of the frantic pre-show scramble that always happens
Always
so that
happens.
everyone can appreciate all the work that you put in.
Let me just make sure that my desk looks a little less mad scientist before you film that next time.
Okay. I think that people have this vision in their minds of like really pristine, perfectly organized studios, and they hold back on actually starting because they see like what are basically, film sets and think like, oh, well, I don't have that. Like, am I really set up for success? So we can negotiate whether I show my B-roll right now on camera while I make the argument that we're empowering artists to worry less about their setup and simply paint.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I love that actually.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yes.
Ooh, Chelsea.
So
Good
my
argument.
setup in my studio right now, my podium is it's an end table that my parents needed to get rid of, so I took it, and then I put a big box on that, and then I have this like piece of scrap wood as my table, and then I just cover it in drapery. It's fine. So.
Oh yeah, my iPad stand is just 3 boxes stacked
Yep.
on top of each other with a cloth on top.
Telling you, artists, we love to hoard some boxes.
I do love a
We
good box.
we love a good box because if it's not going to be used as a pedestal, which it often is,
Yeah.
you're going to go, that's a great box for shipping a painting.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to keep that one because then I don't have to go look for a box that's that perfect
Oh.
size for that painting.
I hate that so much.
Do y'all know who the Holderness family is? They're like a big YouTube family that they do like all of these sort of remixes of songs, and they use that as sort of like talk about comedy in their family life. And they have one, I can't remember to what song that they did it to, but they have one on keeping the boxes that come in from Amazon. And they're like, oh, but it's such a nice box. I don't want to get rid of this box. And there's like rooms full of boxes. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, the closet in my studio is just full of boxes.
Yes. And that's an overflow to what another space that we have dedicated for boxes.
The box
And
closet.
These are just like my
too
own
full
boxes.
of boxes.
Yeah.
And yeah, Erica's like, you know what? I need to
I have so
dedicate my
many.
own closet to boxes.
I don't want to like fill your space with my boxes.
Right, exactly.
Our space is already filled with boxes. There's no more room for boxes. I keep my boxes under my bed for safekeeping.
Kind of this interesting place where I could absolutely paint her eyebrows exactly as I see them, but I kind of like the character of it looking a little bit undone and like disconnected. I think this is one of those like alla prima painter things where like you have like the 2 brush marks for a single eyebrow. So I have to kind of make peace with the fact that it's different from our beautiful model, and that's what's going to like help preserve a little bit of the looseness and the spontaneity and the focus on the brushwork in the piece. But I'm saying this out loud, not to be pedagogical, but to talk myself down from actually painting it.
Repaint the last 5 seconds. Yeah.
I guess pedantic was the word I was looking for, right? I don't know.
You could have said any word.
Yeah,
And I would
yeah,
have
it
agreed
works.
with you, Chelsea.
Thanks, Tina. This is why I'm going to miss you. That and you would be on the switcher telling me it was like Sergeant is in the room with us.
I did say that. Yeah, I stand by it.
Here you go. You heard it here, folks. It says, Lewis, when are we doing another critique and how do I submit a painting? We are actually going to start that back up next month. So where we do open critique sessions. I've had to take a hiatus to get a few things adjusted with East Oaks, but we will be returning back to doing open critiques once a month again. So go ahead and you can submit something via email, but there will be a point at which there's like a portal that opens that you can submit your work. And we will make that announcement on our email list.
I like the phrase, a portal will
I was
open.
just thinking that.
And then you could submit your work.
I just
going
need to have a
into the-
nice like special effects sound that's like
We're really leaning into the like multiverse theory of East
Yeah.
Oaks Studio
Exactly.
playing out on YouTube right now.
It's late.
we do own a wardrobe that goes to Narnia too.
But
Yes.
only like that's the problem. Now that you know, it won't work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
we
thanks
don't.
for that. Now that we've announced it, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Erica's anecdote there.
Like, just
we
kidding.
just sight.
Yeah. So highlights are an area where I need to be like really delicate and not just like slam them in.
And you're saying that for no reason in particular?
No, just because I'm painting the highlight and I'm like reminding myself. Gentle.
Gentle.
That's real though.
I think I just get really excited about light, like the light on it. And I'm like, oh, yay. And then, like, no,
Yeah.
calm down. Temperance.
I'm so excited to eat dinner after this.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah. It's gonna be really nice.
much time?
We
For real.
have 15 minutes.
I really like your composition, Erica.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. What has to happen?
I'm going to put it on the wide angle to show all the pensive, thoughtful looking we have going on here.
Look cool, guys. Look cool.
Yeah, be cool, be cool, be cool.
I'm just like scowling at my painting.
Yeah, that's becomes a thing because if you've ever, for any of you out there that have tried to paint a self-portrait, you'll find yourself scowling at the painting while you're painting it, and then you have to look back in the mirror and actually look pleasant. That's a real challenge, you know.
I mean, lean into the scowl.
So or you can lean in straight into the scowl and just look judgy to everyone out there when you're
Exactly.
being judgy on your painting.
I think that's what mine kind of ended up being.
Love it.
I'm gonna think about that every time I look at a self-portrait.
Yeah.
Not mine, because I don't do that. But anytime I
Oh
look
my
at
God,
someone
you
else's.
should. Would you ever?
Only if you were there for moral support.
I was going to say, what's holding you back?
Okay, I'll
do
just like
it.
unpack all my trauma.
Oh,
We can talk about
sorry,
some
that was
body
a-
issues. We can.
Well, I only asked because sometimes people maybe they don't know, like students, for example, they don't know how to set it up, or they just don't like the idea of, or they don't, just want to do it for any reason. But it can be a really useful way of practicing stuff with
Yeah.
a free model.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think honestly, I get so much joy out of painting faces that force me to. All right, I'm going to back up a second. Metaphorically, also literally, while I check
Like
it.
standing back.
Yeah. Okay, you know that thing of like all of us have tendencies when we paint portraits, we will often bring like some of our anatomy
Mhm.
or a very certain like lens of analyzing someone's anatomy or interpreting someone's anatomy into the portrait. And I find that in other people, like in portraits of other people, I really enjoy that. In me, I find that I am just like, it feels like I'm just giving myself plastic surgery versus like playing.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's hard to just enjoy painting as much. Not to mention making sure I would find the pose and just all of those things. Like that's a pain, but that's just kind of an excuse. I think the real thing is what I just said.
Tina, I'm curious, when you are painting yourself, is there like a separation between you, like looking at it as you, and then like a character that you are painting?
Yeah, definitely. I think because I've done it so many times and I've done it for so long, like I've done it for years because I just didn't have anyone else to model for me. So it kind of stemmed from that. But yeah, like majority of the time when I'm talking about like the painting, I'll say like her face instead of my face because it's so separated, which I like because I don't necessarily want my paintings to be self-portraits. It's just me like playing a role in a way, like playing a character. But That's a common question that I get. It's like, how do you paint yourself? I'm like, it's not me. I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
like a picture
there-
of me. It just so happens to be my face.
Definitely relate to that. Where there's a moment where it just becomes separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's actually like a nice moment of like, okay, I'm not. It's like a moment in the painting where it separates from you, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I do kind of think that if I were treating it more as a photo shoot and I could land on a photo that I like really liked, I think I could probably get into that mindset a bit more.
Yeah.
How do you, I guess I should have like attended your workshop, Tina, but like how do you stage photo shoots of yourself?
A lot of getting up and checking the camera and then sitting back down. So
Yeah.
I use my phone because my camera doesn't have because it's so old, it doesn't have a like good self timer. So it only takes one image and there's like a 10-second time frame and it just never really works for me. So what I'll do is I'll just like set up my lighting and then I'll sit or stand and take some test pictures. I'll use like the burst option. So it'll take like 10 pictures in one go. So I'm able to kind of move and shift. And then I'll get up, see how those pictures turn out, see if I need to change the lighting, all of that. And then I'll just repeat the same process and just continually checking, maybe like changing my hair, changing an outfit if it's not working. And I'll have like 100 pictures to choose from. And sometimes that photo shoot turns into, 3 different paintings.
Yeah. I think that's really helpful to hear. I think a lot of painters kind of have this idea of like you do your photo shoot and you get your one image and it's perfect rather than like, yeah, I took 100 and I did get a couple extra paintings out of it than I was thinking, but I really had to go through all 100 and like really spend time with those images before I was satisfied.
And sometimes I'll like go back like months later and look through the ones that I like didn't save and be like, oh no, like that one is really nice. And I'll pick from a photo shoot that I did, a year ago and paint that, even though originally when I had done it, that was on my no list because I didn't like it. It didn't turn out the right way, but just wasn't the right time for it.
A good thing for people to hear is that you don't need a perfect camera too. Just a phone can work.
Yeah, I always use my phone and I feel like I will get in trouble for it for some reason, but I usually always use my phone.
It's just a good example of no excuses.
Yeah. Especially nowadays, like I have the iPhone 15, but before I had this, I had the iPhone 11. And before I had that, I had the iPhone 8. So it was like, no matter what, I just kind of worked with it.
I did a photo shoot not too long ago of myself when I still had my mustache to do some Western paintings in the future. And the setup and everything that I did took all day. And I took tons of shots. But, I love what Scott Burdick said one time. He took a journalism class, and in the journalism class, the guy said the difference between a professional photographer in journalism and a novice is the amount of photos they take. The professional will take 10, 20 times more photos in their session. So hoping that one of them might have grasped the correct shot that they want or something that was pretty spectacular in that like split moment. And so I've taken that really to heart. So anytime I do shoots, I go all out and I try all sorts of different things. And I got a couple of cool ones, but it does take a lot of time because you're going back and forth, like looking at through the camera, taking shots, being oh, I need to change this thing or I need to shift this a little bit. So
Yeah. It's always so frustrating when you have like a great idea for a pose and you go to do it and it's not like someone can tell you it looks awkward or uncomfortable because you're not able to see yourself from how the camera sees you. So it's a whole other issue when it comes to doing it all yourself. It's just takes even more time. There's no one to direct you.
So, in the background with me is Megan Sowers, and she's working on a self-portrait piece right now. Did you have someone take shots of you? Your husband takes shots, right? That's really nice because he does really good job taking shots of you. So, so that's nice. I need to get Parisa some photography lessons, and we'll,
You got a trainer.
you know, yeah, that'd be great. We could just continue to model for each other that way.
Oh.
I'm due to do another portrait of Parisa, another painting with her in it, and Rosie.
Yeah. Rosie's been waiting.
She said, "Come on, Dad." For those of you who don't know, that's my dog, and she's second to my wife, everything in my life, probably. All right, everyone, we have 3 minutes.
Wow. That's
Just enough time for me to lay down like a really bad brush stroke.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what if I just undermined all the nice things they were working about that little section?
ruin it all. That's what I call the last 3 minutes. Ruin it.
All right, I'm gonna do something questionable in judgment.
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna punch up the highlights on her cheeks, just slightly. Oh my
Ooh,
gosh.
bold move.
I know. Well, it's the last 3 minutes. We're ruining the
That's the rule.
yeah.
I'm gonna do a zoom in on.
Oh, perfect. Good, good,
We
good.
can
Yeah.
really
Slow-mo?
see it.
Here we go. Gail's asking if Livia is still at East Oaks. Livia just left. Obviously she will always be a part of the East Oaks family, but she has returned home to Washington State. So, and she's still making work. I saw her post something not too long ago. So, but I think she's happy to be with her family, and you know, we miss her though.
We do.
She's here in spirit.
Absolutely. She said, I asked because I pulled out the drawing of her friend that I hadn't finished to work on during today's session. Well, that's awesome. She would be happy to know that.
Is that really the right value? I just
All these are looking great. All right, everybody. That is time. Ashley, thank you so much. You did such
Yeah,
a wonderful
you're freaking
job.
awesome.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And everyone at home, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's always a pleasure to be a part of your life when we do these. And for whatever that may be, we've had people just sitting at dinner and like to have us on in the, while they're hanging out, and we've had people paint along. So whatever it is that we are in your life, we appreciate it. And we like having you. So we will be doing another one next month. We also have Grant Perry coming in November to do another live stream workshop. If you haven't seen it yet, you must see Tina's workshop that she just finished with us on painting, storytelling in your painting. So she did an excellent, excellent job. So check that out. And like I was just saying, we will be doing critique sessions next month. Looking forward to that. And everyone, I hope that you have a wonderful evening and happy, happy painting. Good night. Say goodbye, everybody, and say
Thank
goodbye,
you.
Tina.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
Like waving to my painting. Thank you.